Hi, folks. I am Rebecca from Blonde in the Belly of the Beast. This is Critical Condition, Robyn Riley. And as you have probably found out from my channel or her channel at this point, if you watch our channels, we have decided to start a new YouTube channel together. It is called Motherland, as you can see from the banner. And we're going to talk about a host of things. We kind of wanted to let it develop organically, but we are both pregnant right now. Robyn is due. You're doing 2 months, right?
Yep.
And I'm due June 27th, so I'm about 4 months pregnant right now, a little more than 4 months. And I don't know about you, but I watch a lot of motherhood channels. So when we decided to do this, I was just like, this market might be saturated. But then I watch them and they are so apolitical. And not only that, they're very concerned with avoiding the appearance of being political. Nobody's talking about cultural issues on these motherhood channels. And we were just thinking that the way society influences us, the way we perceive society, that's going to influence the way we raise our children. It's going to influence our marriages. It's going to influence the communities that we live in. And so much of the issues that, or so many of the issues that we discuss kind of surround that. And so we were thinking, how can we take on new topics that we want to talk about, not necessarily political, while still integrating some of these cultural issues. So is that what you wanted from the channel? I don't even know.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. The only thing that I would add as a counterpoint to that is that while majority of it is very apolitical, you will on occasion get the scatter woman in sort of like podcasts or, like doing her thing in the mom community where she's like clearly a radical feminist. And you get this kind of this perspective on the medical sector that the reason why it is the way that it is because of patriarchy, right? And you get these words like empowerment and reclaiming birth, right? All this sort of leftist terminology starts to seep in when you're listening to those sorts of moms. And then you will also get on occasion, Christian moms. There's a lot of Christian moms that are online, but I think they're terrified to actually market and brand themselves as Christian family women, right? Mm-hmm. And I think they don't want to alienate this, hippie, feminist, crunchy mom sector.
Right.
So they sort of keep their mouths shut about how spirituality and what is no doubt like somewhat right-leaning politics influences their choices and influences things that they believe. And I think that's something that we can easily cover on this channel as well.
Definitely. And I cannot even believe that I'm saying this right now, but when I envision this channel, there is a lot of stuff that I like coming out of the birth segment of the crunchy mom.
Me too.
I like a lot of the stuff that they have to say on the left about child rearing and about birth and natural birth and things like that. Even though I'm not sure that's what I'm doing. I don't know. So I kind of wanted this to be like more of a tolerant atmosphere. Oh my God. Today is the day that came out of my mouth, but here we are. I mean, I think we can all unite in womanhood and then the experience of giving birth and being a mom. And that really is kind of a unifying thing. And so if you are a radical feminist, I don't want to be like, get out of here. There's a lot from that segment too that I can learn from.
Absolutely, because
I
think so too. Like I don't know if you've listened to any of the hypnobirthing affirmation type content. Like a lot of that sounds like you're listening to like 110-pound cute yoga teacher, right? Like in like a feminist yoga center. Like it's very like your body is a portal between worlds. And like, while it can be a little bit cringe, right? For us, who try and stay away from that kind of stuff in general, I do think that there's utility to it. Yeah. Like I think that we should be able to feel empowered, dare I say it, by a birth experience. If there's any experience that can actually empower you as a woman, it's going to be birth. So what is kind of exciting about, I think, this channel is that even though we're coming at this from a right-wing perspective and a Christian perspective, there's no reason why we should have to exclude the other side of this, right? I mean, exactly. Like there's a blind spot, I think, for some of the feminists because they'll say things like, we need to reclaim birth education, which we do, right? I do think women do need to reclaim that. We need to kick the men out of our birthing space, right? Like, this is a woman-centered experience. And I think they're right about that in a way, but they don't extend that same courtesy to men. Like, they don't acknowledge
there's no male space, right?
Yeah, there's no male space. We're allowed to go into any space that we want and dominate it, but this just happens to be our women's space, right? So I think that there needs to be balance there, right? There needs to be an acknowledgement that, okay, like, they might be right about this. This is the women's space. This is like where we can be empowered, but men also have their own spaces. And maybe we would all benefit from acknowledging that we don't do better in those realms,
No, of course not. I think that's so true. And as far as the political sphere is concerned, I also can't believe that I'm saying this, but there's a lot of negative energy in the political sphere.
There is.
And I wanted to create something more positive. You are generally a much more positive person. I've talked about this a lot on our channel, but we're actually very good friends. We talk all the time. And Robyn she's just a positive person. And I really struggle with nihilism, with being black-pilled, with fear, with anxiety. And I think that by changing the direction of my content, I hope that I can not infect this next generation with my nihilism, because I think that we have a real opportunity and a responsibility to avoid doing that. I don't want to have some daughter that's just like me, that's a huge negative Nancy that thinks that society's falling apart and there's nothing worth, I don't want that. I want her to be hopeful about the future. Oh, I'm having a girl also, by the way. And you're having a boy, but I don't think we mentioned that, but you have mentioned it on your channel.
I have, ages ago.
But I want that for our children. I want them to have a hopeful future, to feel like our communities are worth investing in, and there are things to look forward to, and family is important. And so I just really felt like, for my mental health, for the health of my child, like, I had to change direction in that way. And in that way, you were the obvious person to want to do this channel with, because I can't be around somebody that's like me while being pregnant. I just can't. So
well, I think, it's not necessarily your fault or any woman's fault for feeling that way. I've felt that way, because I think even in our community, some of our mutuals who would claim to be pro-natalist in their rhetoric, I have a skepticism about whether or not the rhetoric that they use actually is pro-natalist, because I think it's mostly motivated by fear mongering. And women in general, I think in the West, we have a lot of fear culture surrounding birth and pregnancy anyways. Yeah. Right? We're afraid of every aspect of it, the way that it'll change our body, our appearance, the way that it'll hold us back from our careers, the pain, the recovery, the vulnerability, just the fact that a lot of women are straight up ignorant about pregnancy and motherhood. So there's obviously going to be fear associated with that. And like when we think about like the images, the cultural images that we're most often exposed to when it comes to pregnancy, what is it? It's like a really, really overweight woman, a woman who looks like she maybe gained 100 pounds in her pregnancy.
Right.
And she's on her back in a hospital room screaming as if she's being tortured, and it's kind of like mocked. There's kind of like like a laugh track there, right? So there's like this element of humiliation, right? And I think that, women being exposed to those sorts of images from a very, very young age is super, super damaging to like our willingness and our desire to become mothers. And then even for us who want it, right? And in right-wing circles where it is promoted, you still get this fear element where it's like, well, you better get it done soon. How fast are you getting it done? You know, why haven't you done it yet? This kind of thing. And the positivity aspect of it, like, in in current circles, it's a lot of body positivity. Like, it's okay to like gain 60 pounds and, you know, that kind of stuff. Like, which, you know, so every woman is different and her body will react to pregnancy different. And I'm not trying to shame women for gaining a bit of weight during pregnancy, but there is like an aspect of the mental positivity that I think gets completely left by the wayside. And that's where we can really shine, you know, because
Yeah, definitely.
men are not really the ones who should be trying to promote pronatalism for women. It should be women who are
It should
living.
be women doing it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And they don't really understand. I mean, I know I sound like a leftist right now, like, you don't have a uterus, you can't talk about what this is like. But like, until you're pregnant, you don't realize the physical toll. I'm not saying that it's an insurmountable problem or anything like that, but I was doing my podcast the other day, and just to get to the podcast, it took like every ounce of strength that I had. I was so exhausted the whole day. And like, I put a little makeup on and some lipstick, and like, I'm reading the comments after the podcast, and somebody's like, some dude, like, you're having a baby, you don't have fucking cancer, like, get your shit together. I know. And I was like, you don't understand, like, the fatigue of especially first trimester pregnancy. It's like nothing I've ever experienced before. I was sleeping 16 hours a day. I mean, there
Yeah.
was just nothing I can do. I was working out all the time before I got pregnant. And this is something that we want to talk about on this episode specifically, like first trimester pregnancy. Because I was going into pregnancy and like, I'm working out all the time. I'm doing bar like 4 or 5 times a week. I'm eating so clean, and I'm getting great sleep, and I'm waking up early, and I'm like, this is how I'm going to be during my pregnancy. I get pregnant, everything immediately goes to shit. Like,
Yeah.
I can't stomach anything but garbage. I can't work out anymore. I'm sleeping until noon or 1 every single day. And like, just getting out of bed and drinking a bunch of water and eating like 5 chicken nuggets is it's like it's all I could do. I
Hey, it's
mean,
protein, right?
I know. And then I'm throwing up, and like, I look terrible, and it just kind of went to shit. And so I'm like Googling, for experiences like this, because I'm like, is my baby going to get everything that it needs? And is my prenatal vitamin enough? And blah, 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 blah. And what I was reading on all these forums is that, and then I called my midwife about it, and she's like, this is just the time for you to survive. You do whatever you can. You eat whatever you can tolerate, eat whatever you can, and sleep as much as you need to. And then just worry about introducing some vegetables and some fruits and some exercise into your second trimester. Like, just for now, you just sleep. And that was so reassuring to me, because I just felt like I couldn't do anything, and like the baby wasn't going to make it. Because especially in the first trimester, you don't know what's going on. You're not gaining any weight. And the only indication that you're pregnant is that you feel like garbage. Otherwise, I would have had no idea. Even now, if I wasn't kind of getting fat and, kind of felt like crap, I would have no idea that I was pregnant. I'm not feeling the baby yet. I know you are.
Yeah, he's under my left rib right now. That's where he likes to keep his feet and hang out there lately. But my first trimester was pretty. I mean, I think, from my experience, there were a lot of rough elements. But when I compare to what I've heard from other women, like, I had it kind of easy. Like, there's a few YouTubers that I watch who are also currently documenting their pregnancy and stuff, and like, they have like nausea every single day, and like have all kinds of like hip issues. And like, for me, my first trimester, I think the hardest part was the mood swings, which it threw off my ability to communicate effectively with my husband, because
Hard.
Like you said, like that commenter who was like, you don't have cancer, like, you're just pregnant. Like, honestly, like, that's kind of like something my husband would say, you know what I mean? Like, not in like a cruel way, but like, it's just like, he literally doesn't get it, and there's no way that I can make him get it, right? And you don't look pregnant, right? So even though you expect to be like treated like a pregnant woman, like, coddled and stuff, it's like, nobody perceives you that way. So you're not getting that kind of sensitivity and the kind of like emotional support that you feel you want and that you deserve. And my specific situation was kind of extra stressful because I've spoke about this on my own channel, but just in case people who aren't like familiar with me don't know, like on this channel, I was living in Belgium when I got pregnant, right? And we were both, myself and my husband, were planning on moving to Canada, which we've successfully achieved. But we found out that I was pregnant on the same weekend that he accepted a job offer for our current location. Right.
I mean,
so
that's
it was
all great news, but it's just so much change.
It's so much change, and like it's a lot of responsibility just like thrown at your feet all at once. And I think hopefully what other people can gather as like a positive takeaway from my experience is that there isn't ever going to be a perfect time to get pregnant, right? There's always going to be something in your life that you're going to wish it were another way, right? And for me, I was like super, super exhausted all the time. Like when we were moving, my husband was like taking pictures of like our empty place. And I was like in the corner, like with my eyes rolled back in my head, so exhausted from like packing all day.
Yeah.
Feeling like crap. Also, I really felt really like worried that I wasn't getting in my nutrients because I, like you, like was totally on it for a very long period of time with my health and my exercise and diet and everything, and then it just kind of all you just fall off the wagon when you're pregnant. But I think based on my understanding, your body kind of like builds up a reserve of nutrients, right? So if you're being proactive about your health leading up to pregnancy, chances are you've got a fairly good reserve of nutrients in your fat reserves in your body fat to begin with. And then if you're taking your prenatal and you're just doing the best you can, you're not like under eating. That's the most that I think a lot of women can handle.
Yeah. And then there are tons of women. This is something else that my doctor told me. There are tons of women that get this. The name escapes me, but it's a type of morning sickness that's like extremely severe. Like you lose weight in your first trimester. Yeah. And she's like, there are people that are consuming 300 calories a day that aren't keeping anything down. Their babies are all going to be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, life, and this is something that my mom told me that made me feel a lot better. Like life wants to be created. It wants to, these babies want to be born and they kind of find a way, and they're little vampires. They will just suck the life out of mom. And sometimes I resent that, but most of the time I'm like, awesome. That is so good. Let's talk about this vanity thing, because I've always been an extremely vain person. And so I was always worried about pregnancy. I'm like, what's it going to do to my body and my vagina? Blah, 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 blah. And so I was always worried about it. And then people would tell me like, your priorities will change, so it won't matter as much to you. Yeah. And that is exactly what's happened. Like, I'm 17 weeks pregnant. I've gained about, 8 or 9 pounds. But like the distribution of my body has changed. And so like sometimes I'll be looking at myself naked and I'll be like, that's kind of a bummer. But the first thing I'll think before I think that's a bummer is like, is this good for baby? Is this what's going to be good for the baby? And that's totally what's happened. It's like, I'm not wearing makeup as much anymore. Like I'm always in comfortable pants. I'm getting fat, and I'm kind of just like, I don't care as long as the baby's getting what it needs. So has your sense of vanity changed?
It has, but in a really surprising way. I felt like in the first trimester, I was mostly afraid of what was going to happen because it was just pure unknown, right? And I really didn't want to get stretch marks, and thankfully so far I haven't. I've taken a lot of precautions to prevent stretch marks. But like my mom bounced back really well from her pregnancy, and she didn't get stretch marks. So I'm hoping that it'll be the same with me. But the weight gain wasn't an issue for me as much because I feel confident that I can lose weight, right? Like I feel like I know how to lose weight through diet and exercise. So I was fine with gaining weight. I just really didn't want stretch marks because those are permanent. Like that really freaked me out to have stretch marks. And the surprising thing about the changes in my body and how I reacted to them was that coming into my second trimester, I'm assuming it was maybe my hormones, or like my husband thinks it's because I'm having a boy and there's more testosterone in my blood now. But I felt so confident. Like I just felt so womanly, and I felt like the way that my body was changing, because I've always been kind of like flat chested a little bit, gaining weight in womanly places made me feel more confident, and it
Yeah.
actually made me feel like kind of sexy, like dare I say that, like and my husband has always been very supportive in like making me feel beautiful and giving me compliments and stuff. So even if I'm having a bad day, just having him be that way, towards me and like make me feel like I'm beautiful still.
Yeah.
It's been a lot easier to deal with than I thought it would be. Now that I'm in the third trimester though, it's kind of like I feel like if someone had pressed a needle against my belly, I would pop. So it's hard to feel sexy when you feel like you're about to explode at any minute. like I feel like my belly is like, it's just, there's so much pressure and so much stretching sensation. So there isn't that kind of body confidence that I felt in the second trimester, but like just the same as you, I know it's good for my baby. Whenever my midwife measures my baby and she's like, perfect, you're right on schedule. Like that's as much as information as I need to hear to sort of squash any insecure, oh God, my body's so different now, type thoughts that might be running through my head.
Right. Yeah. And then we have to keep in mind that our bodies were meant to do this. This is what we were meant to do. And so that kind of takes the pressure off of me a little bit, because it's not like this is some alien life force that's inhabiting my body and my body doesn't know what to do. It's like I got pregnant and like that was it. Things are happening. I don't know how they're happening, but they are. Something that I learned, I don't know if this helped you or if it didn't help you, but I stopped looking at pictures of fetal growth by week because it freaked me out. Because I'd be like,
really do that anyway.
Oh, really? I know a lot of women do it. Like
CGI images of what they look like. Okay, right. Yeah.
So I know a lot of people that are like, this is the week, this is how big my baby is, this is what's going on in utero and everything like that. And so I did that for the first few weeks, but then I found myself so stressed out because I'd be like, this is the week the brain is forming the most and I have to be extra good this week. And then naturally that would be the week that like I vomit all day and can't eat anything but McDonald's and like can barely keep water down. And then I'm like, my baby's brain, what am I going to do? So I just stopped it all. I'm like, my body knows what to do. And I just have to do the best I can every day and getting the nutrients that I need and getting enough water, especially, which has been really hard. So I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people really meticulously track their pregnancy, but I'm just, most of the time I don't really feel pregnant, to be honest.
You will soon. You're 17 weeks. So like you're looking at between the next 3 to 4 weeks, it's going to start to get really real, really fast for you. But with regard to that, I have an app on my phone called What to Expect. And it compares your baby's size to a vegetable or a fruit every week. It gives you a notification on your phone to tell you what week you are. And I like that because I also don't really feel the desire to be kind of like, oh, I'm exactly this, far along every single day. It just tells me and I'm like, okay, cool. Someone asked, I know how many weeks I am.
It's always a round fruit though. I'm like, how is my baby the size of a peach? It's not a little baseball in there.
And sometimes it's not accurate. Like I feel like 1 week it's like your baby is the size of a broccoli, and then the next it's like your baby is the size of a grapefruit, and I'm just like, but aren't broccoli like bigger than grapefruit? Like, is my baby shrinking? Like, it's kind of a stupid app, you know what I mean? Like, it's really just so I don't have to keep track of how many weeks I am in my head. But I think what you're kind of getting at here is something that I've heard on the Crunchy Mom side of things, where women really want hands-off pregnancies, right? And I love that term, hands-off pregnancy. Like I do think we as women are, we do have a responsibility to, do what we can to make sure our pregnancies are healthy and we're looking after ourselves and all those things. But there is this kind of neuroticism which comes with the territory of like womanly things, right? Where we can get super like zeroed in and focused on stuff. Yeah. And it actually snowballs into something which turns out to be negative, right? Oh, yeah. And trusting the body's automatic process of things, I think for me was a huge relief in the first trimester, because, like in the first trimester, and I'm sure you experienced this as well, most women do, before you've told anyone, right? And the chances of the pregnancy possibly going wrong is higher in that first trimester. It's easier to worry, right? Before you've gotten your anatomy scan and your genetic testing, if you choose to do that. it's easy to worry. And one thing that my husband said, which really, it was like, as soon as I heard him say it, it was just like this relief washed over me. He was like, these are all automatic processes.
Mm-hmm.
If the pregnancy ends via miscarriage, it's an automatic process. You have to trust that your body did that for a reason. You may not understand it, but it happened. It happened, and it's okay, and it's not your fault. And chances are, like you said previously, the body wants to hold on to this pregnancy. That little baby wants to grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can trust the automatic process that that's what's most likely to happen, it's kind of like, okay, well, it isn't actually all on me. You know, thank the good Lord that he gave us women bodies that actually can produce like little human beings without our conscious effort. Like, can you imagine if we had to consciously, divvy up nutrients and like give it to our baby on a daily basis? And like, it's such a gift. It's something that we should be so grateful for, that
Definitely.
God made our bodies this way, that it is an automatic process. That's what makes it such a miracle to me. So yeah, I think a more hands-off approach, especially when we're looking at the development and stuff, like, if you're into that, go for it. There are lots of type A personality moms out there that just like love seeing those like update reports. But I'm a little bit more like you, where I'm just kind of like taking it day by day. And I don't really feel the need to know exactly what stage my baby's at in utero every single week. Although so with regard to what you said about the brain development thing, just as an aside, a little bit of a short tangent on that, from what I've researched, most of the important brain development happens in the third trimester.
Oh, okay.
And like, how they get those little like wiggly lines in the brain, like those start to form in the third trimester. I don't know what they're called. But what I'm doing to try and promote that is I'm eating fish eggs
Mm-hmm.
every single day. And in the beginning, I was like, wow, like my husband got me a caviar, like wild Alaskan caviar to eat. Like, oh, I feel so like special. And like, I get to have this like luxury item. And like, now it's like, I have to like put them in my mouth and swallow them like pills so that I don't puke, because it's such a challenge to like be eating it every single day. But I think it's the DHA and the omegas and the bioavailability in the fish eggs, which really promotes brain development, which, like by the time you're in the third trimester, most women, except for the most rare and unfortunate cases, they don't have as much issue with getting nutrients in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
This is probably a good segue. We should talk about supplementation, because I hear a lot of different things about this, and I know that both of us have had kind of some prenatal vitamin mishaps.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it took me a while to I was taking prenatals forever before I got pregnant. But to get the right thing down, that took me like a few weeks, maybe even a few months into my pregnancy. So I guess I just go through what I'm taking right now, what I've been taking for most of my pregnancy. I take a 1 a day that has, I think 800 micrograms of folic acid, something like that. That's the most important one. And then the 1 a day is actually, I did all this research on what the best prenatal vitamin is that matches all of the recommended nutrients. And that one was the closest. And then additionally, I take 2000 IU of vitamin D. I take a probiotic with lactobacteria. I think that's what it's called, just for like vaginal flora. And then I take a DHA, like a fish oil supplement, every day.
Right. So for myself, I started off, obviously, like I said previously, I was in Europe. So from Europe to Canada, there's actually a huge amount of variety in like the quality and availability of affordable prenatal supplements, and a lot of conflicting information. When I was in Belgium, my doctor, it's like when I went in for my blood test, he prescribed me a 4 milligram tablet of folic acid, which is like, that's a lot. That's a lot of folic acid. And I was just kind of like, oh, well, this is great. I'm getting so much, like I'll definitely be absorbing at least a couple milligrams of it, right? And then down the line, I was just kind of like, is this too much? Because I think I encountered a study where it was like too much of certain vitamins can be detrimental, just like not enough can. And I found all of these studies that were like related to too much folic acid being associated with things like autism. But I mean, you could find a study where like what you're doing is associated to creating autism about pretty much friggin' anything at this point. Ugh. So I tried to kind of like squash that fear, but I was like totally terrified that I had been overdosing myself with folic acid in the beginning. And I found a really good prenatal vitamin at like a health food store in Slovenia. Bought enough for 3 months, and then by the time I was in Canada, I had to like start researching again in my second trimester. And I don't know, I know I saw the sort of contents of the one that you have, and it's great. It's like very balanced, the one a day. But up here, like it's really difficult to find a prenatal vitamin that has your iodine, it has your vitamin D, it has your B12. Has your magnesium and your folic acid in what, in my opinion, is the right quantities.
Right.
So I ended up going with a Thorn prenatal vitamin, and I bought it off Amazon. And then my big mishap was that we bought it, and then I went back to the website for some reason. Oh no, I checked the back, and it was like, there's no folic acid in this. Or no,
what's
folate.
The point?
Yeah, there's no folate in this, right? Because I got it because it said folate and not folate, because folate is supposed to be the natural form of folic. Folic is the synthetic, and there's all this like debate about which one's better, which I think is kind of silly, personally. But so I went through the comment section, and people were like, this is a fake seller. You know, this isn't real prenatal vitamins from Thorn. This is a person who's like scamming you. So then I was like, great. So I just spent a ton of money on a bunch of prenatals that aren't real from a scam person on Amazon. And I still need like prenatal vitamins. Like thankfully I had some backup ones that I got from like the drugstore, but they weren't ideal. They weren't what I wanted. And then I, just to make a long story short, I ended up having to call the company, took a bunch of pictures, sent them a sample, and they told me that they actually were, but you had to peel back the label, and it was like in a very faint print on the back side where the other seemingly missing nutrients were and what the quantities were. So it was the right.
Morons.
Yeah, it's just stupid design, and they have like a bunch of different designs for the same vitamins. So that's a warning for you ladies out there. If you're buying vitamins on like Amazon and on the internet, just like save yourself the hassle of like, the possibility of someone selling you something that's counterfeit, which does happen on the internet. And just like make sure you're getting it from a verified seller.
Yeah,
and so now
buy it at Walgreens or something.
Yeah, exactly. So now I take the Thorn prenatal basic vitamin, which I'm sure is a real thing, and it has 1,000 micrograms of folic, so 1 milligram of folic in it. It has like the iodine is like a big thing for me because I know that it's supposed to be associated with IQ. Like getting your iodine in. I take 2,500 IUs of vitamin D. I take a B12. I take krill oil for extra DHA, and then I also supplement things like in my food. Like when I think about what my supplementation is, I also like think about what foods that I'm trying to eat. So I eat a lot of dates. I'm eating this like kefir probiotic, which has the same lactobacillus thing that you were just mentioning, every single day with frozen fruit. And I also drink like nettle and raspberry tea, which is full of like minerals and that kind of stuff. So I try and, I try and get a balance of my supplementation from both my food and my vitamins, but like, this is one thing that I think we can really get obsessive about and neurotic about, so I'm just trying to do the best that I can. If I don't eat dates every day because they're kind of sickly, then I'm not going to beat myself up about it. Right. I think it's going to be okay if I skip a day on dates.
And then I had this major freak out early in pregnancy because I got this box of one a day from Amazon, and it came with 2 bottles. And so I just assumed that they were both the prenatal vitamin they had sent me 2 bottles. I just ordered 2 bottles. And so I just take one out and I start taking it. This is like for the first month of my pregnancy. And I realized at some point that I had only been taking the DHA or the
Yeah.
DHE, whatever.
Oh.
And so I'm calling my midwife, like sobbing and everything like that. And she's like, listen, there's folic acid. It's fortified in all of our foods. And women often don't know that they're pregnant until 7, 8, 9 weeks and they aren't taking anything. And so, your baby's going to be fine. Your baby's not going to have a neural tube defect or spina bifida. It's going to be fine. Just try to enjoy your pregnancy. And like, we also have to think about that. Like, if we do something incorrect, like I did, or if you weren't taking folic acid because you didn't read the back of the one you bought or didn't look into that. I mean, these things happen during pregnancy, and you just have to think that in previous generations, like cave women weren't supplementing with folic acid and all of the species managed to survive,
Yes, exactly.
We've always made it. And even in my mom's generation, like I called her freaking out about this vitamin D thing because I was like, I'm going to have preeclampsia. I'm low on vitamin D, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, we didn't know any of this stuff when I was having babies. It was fine. And then her mom, like, smoked through all of her pregnancies and stuff. They didn't know they weren't supposed to do stuff like that. So I just have to keep in mind, like, what you're not doing, which is smoking and drinking, hopefully, it's got to be the most important thing. What you're not doing is most important.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that a lot of women give a shit about it anyway. Like I was at some event for the military with my husband, and I saw a woman there that was like, she was like 7 or 8 months pregnant. She was like smoking a cigarette in public. And so I'm thinking, like, if this is what she'll do in public, then I can't imagine. And she had like 5 healthy kids or something.
Right. Yeah.
Not that I'm condoning this kind of behavior,
no,
but
of course not. Of course
these things
not,
happen.
And
the fact that we're paying attention has to matter, right?
Totally. And the one of the things that really surprised me when I was in Belgium is that women all drink alcohol while they're pregnant. In Belgium, and I think in France too. And now they do actually, if you look at the stats, they do have a higher instance of fetal alcohol syndrome. Yeah, over there than what we do here, because it's like very, very frowned upon here. But a lot of women will have like a glass of wine with their main meal of the day in Belgium, and it's like it's not a thing. Like right. Doctors wouldn't think anything of it. So like I think there is a lot of variety out there when you're trying to think of like what's the best thing to do for your kid. We get hung up on this, and me and my mom makes fun of me too. Like she'll be like, you millennials, you have so much time to like spend like thinking about this stuff. Like what? Like
we do.
It's like when, like why? Like I don't understand. Like when I was pregnant with you, like I found out I was pregnant, then I like forgot for 2 months. Like
yeah.
And I'm just like, you boomer, that's probably why I'm like all messed up.
Stupid boomers, God.
But there is something that I think we've kind of lost with like respect to like having like multi-generations of our family intact in one place, where like this wisdom is just like, it's common sense. It's like, just at the forefront of our experience, because we have our mothers and our grandmothers around. Which is like kind of another reason why I think this community is so important, is that we've lost touch with that.
Yeah. That is a really sad loss. And when I got pregnant, I'm kind of living out here by myself and with my husband, but I don't have any family around me. And so I just found myself, although I'm extremely high in neuroticism, we've talked about the Jordan Peterson test, right?
Yeah.
Were you pretty high too, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm super high. I have a lot of coping mechanisms though. I have
You're
a
well
lot
adjusted. You're well adjusted. But I was in the 99th percentile of neuroticism. So it literally said at the bottom, in a group of 100 people, you are the most neurotic person in the room.
Oh no!
Like, oh my God. I mean, I totally believe it. But it is just the worst quality to have in pregnancy, because I'm stressed out all the time. I get into internet research rabbit holes 5 times a day, and pulling myself out of that. And like, I'm calling my mom and my dad all the time, and my sister. I'm like, is this normal? I'm calling my midwife all the time. I had my first round ligament pain last night. Because I have this big maternity pillow, like shaped like a U. It looks like a giant worm. It's disgusting. But to roll over, I have to like throw my body all the way around. And then I got this just sharp stabbing pain in my lower abdomen, and it felt like it was just stretching and pulling out. And I had read before, because I'm totally neurotic, that you can have a placental abruption and that it feels like sharp stabbing pain. And so I'm like, oh my God, that's what's happening. And then I immediately fell back asleep. So I called my midwife this morning. I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, it's fine. That's just round ligament pain. Drink fluids.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're neurotic and you haven't experienced pregnancy before and you haven't felt the baby yet, it's like, what's going on in there? Like, what normal? Do you have a giant port wine stain on your face, like birthmark on your face? It's like the possibility for things that could go wrong are just endless. And so I just have to stay in this headspace where I just try not to think about it.
Yeah. Well,
But
for me, I've also had, like, I think on the Jordan Peterson test, I'm in the 70, I mean, it's either 73 or 77th percentile for neuroticism. So that's still substantially high. I'm high in withdrawal too, which means that I feel negative emotions really intensely, and it takes me a while to recover from them and go back to a homeostasis. But I've found that, exercise really, really helps with that, because I literally am wearing myself out. So I don't have that extra energy, that extra mental energy that's just kind of like, floating around inside of me. That's really helpful. And this is something that I like, the pregnancy in general, I feel like has brought me really, really close to God. My daily prayers have become like, I'm more consistent with my daily prayers than I ever have been in my whole life. And that's something that I'm so, so thankful for. Because you can do all the research you want, right? And we can rely on our midwives and our doulas and our medical health professionals for, like, some sort of peace of mind. But at the end of the day, like, all of this is uncertain, right? There has to be a kind of surrender, I think, for us to trust our bodies, and to, like, for me personally, it's been like handing it over to God and like trusting that it's going to be okay. And I get a lot of inner peace from like praying for my baby as well, because like I feel like I'm doing everything I can to a degree, like probably could be doing more physical exercise.
Yeah, me too.
But by other people's standards, I'm kind of like pleased with myself with how much I'm doing. My husband thinks I could be doing more. But
you're doing weights now, right?
Yeah. I'm doing moderate weightlifting and cardio 3 days a week. And then I try and get to the swimming pool once a week, but I have failed to get that done the past 2 weeks because it's been really, really cold here and I've been having some car trouble. So I've just been using that as an excuse to not go. I could take the bus, but like,
you have to come home wet and stuff. No, that sounds terrible.
No, I'm not doing
You'll freeze to death. No, that's way more than I'm doing. I'm still in this period where I'm like, if I can walk 7 to 10 miles a week, then I'm happy with that.
I think that's in alignment with what like doctors would say is enough physical exercise, because it's supposed to be like, what is it? It's like 120
50,
minutes, 150 minutes spread out over the course of the week.
Of moderate exercise though, which they call like walking up a hill, but I'm walking like on a flat track at a slow pace. So it's not super great, but I just feel like it's all I can do. And it's also kind of depressing because before this, I was 122 pounds. I'm 5'6", and I was just killing it at bar. I could just do everything. Like I loved going. And then it's just like I'm just like this dumpy bodied, like sleeping till noon, wearing fake pants all the time. Like it's depressing. And I can't do what I could before either. Like everything hurts. And
you said that bar, like I've never done bar, but you've told me, I think that bar is very core centered, right? So you need to be really careful.
Yeah. I see a lot of women before that were doing it throughout their pregnancies. But one of the first things that made me know that I was pregnant was that I basically like passed out on the floor, like fell asleep on the floor while everybody was planking during bar, because I was just like, I can't do it. And it's so much core work, which is fine, but you can get this thing where your abdomen separates.
Yes.
And so you have to modify all the core work. You've got to do the planks on your knees. You have to put a ball behind your back. You can't do any abdominal crunches. So really the only thing that's going to be super helpful for you in bar is like the thigh and leg work. And at that point, I'm like, I'll just walk. I might as well
Yeah.
walk.
Yeah.
And then the arm stuff is helpful too. But
Yes. Yeah, yeah. I kind of like skip the whole core stuff. Like I feel like so I have a physiotherapist, like a prenatal physiotherapist, and she checked my stomach to see if there was any separation last week, and she was able to get one finger in between my two muscles, which she said was great at the stage that I'm at in my pregnancy. Some women you can get like three, and and at that point, like if you were lying on your back and you raised your head, you would start to see a bulging in between the muscles, right? No, it's not. It's really not good. And I'm really, really trying to be conscious of that separation because I really don't want that to happen. But squats are really good. I find like I do a lot of squats and I do a lot of like the leg press where you're like on your back and you're just pressing up because one of the things that I think I learned recently from listening to birth stories and stuff is that like labor is kind of like running a marathon in a way. Like you do want to keep your muscle mass as like you're probably not going to be gaining muscle mass while you're pregnant, but you don't want to be losing it either. I think some loss is inevitable. Like when I moved from Belgium to Canada, like there was at least 2.5 solid months where I didn't do anything. Like the move totally threw off my routine. I was feeling exhausted still. We were still really stressed because the routine hadn't been sorted. So like the thoughts of exercising was like, it just seemed inhumane to put myself through that. Right. So like there was that period where I didn't do anything for like, a good couple months. But now that I've gotten back into it, like I kind of do feel like I'm training for a physical event. Right. And I think if
you are, yeah.
And I think if in the beginning you're having a little bit of like trouble stabilizing, it's better to not like beat yourself up over that because then I think you run the risk of being like, oh, well, I failed in the first part, so why even bother in the second part? Like you don't want to get into that negative headspace. I think it's natural for women to have kind of ebbs and flows of their energy levels and to have periods of downtime and periods of activity during their pregnancy. Starting whenever you feel like you're capable of starting is, even if it's halfway through your pregnancy, that's better than, not doing it at all.
Definitely.
Right?
And then I think the real thing is just not gaining too much weight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
that seems to be really big.
There are a lot of people that gain. I'm shooting for 30 pounds. That's what I'm going for.
Yeah. That's good.
It's going okay now, but most of the weight gain is to come because I'm only 3 weeks into my second trimester. So, so now I'm like, if I gain 35 pounds to 40 pounds, even, all right, fine. But I don't want to get into this situation where I'm gaining like 70 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's going to make it hard to take care of the baby too.
It could affect labor as well.
It could affect
like
labor, yeah.
From what I've heard, it can like one of the biggest risk factors for ending up with interventions during labor is too much weight gain.
Yeah.
It's not like, for sure that it's going to happen, but anything that you can avoid to make labor easier is good. I think so. I'm like you said, like I'm about 2 months out from giving birth. And I've gained 30 pounds at least.
Well, you're supposed to gain a pound a week for the remaining at most 10 weeks. You're not going to make it to 42. So you probably won't gain more than 10 pounds. That'll put you at 38 to 40 pounds, which is almost a perfect weight gain.
Yeah. Like I'm okay with that. I don't like the idea of gaining 40 pounds, but I have to keep reminding myself, like when I look at myself in the mirror, like I don't look like I've gained 40 pounds. Like my arms and my legs are the same. Like my face has gotten a bit rounder, but like my limbs are the same pretty much, right? It's also
spindly limbs and
in one area.
Yeah. And you also have to keep in mind you've gained 8 pounds in blood.
That's it. Yes, exactly.
And a lot of the weight is like the actual baby. The placenta is heavy. You have all of these new blood vessels all over your body. It's not just like all the weight gain is fat.
Yeah. Yeah, that I honestly, every single time I feel like I'm like, oh God, like what's happening? I feel like I'm such a blob. I have like a screenshot on my phone of like the breakdown of like what your body gains weight from. So like the
Yeah.
uterus, like you said, the blood, the baby itself, the amniotic fluid. And I just look at that and I'm like, okay, it's fine. Like
I know.
most of this has to be essential to the baby's survival.
Right,
So
right.
it's okay. But it is, I think the thing that's most alarming about the weight gain is just how rapid it is. If you're the
Yeah.
kind of woman who maintains her body weight and has been pretty much the same weight her whole life, to like that, you know what I mean, in 3 or 4 months, gain 40 pounds or 30 pounds, it's
Oh yeah.
impossible not to let that get to your head.
Yeah, totally. And like there was a period of time, like in college, I gained 15 pounds. And then after when I moved to New York, I gained like an additional 10. So there was a time in my life when I was up to like, I don't know, 140. I'm 5'6". And that, well,
Right.
maybe a little more than that even. And at that time, I remember looking in the mirror and being like, I am so fat. Like what happened here? And now, because I started at, I don't know, 125, something like that, I'm gonna get up to 160.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is 20 pounds bigger than when I felt like a friggin' whale at my absolute fattest, when I wasn't taking care of myself at all. I was drinking all the time. I was eating garbage. And I just think about that and I'm like, oh no, oh no. But it's going to be in my belly and it's for the
Yeah.
baby. So,
Yeah,
so it's
and the
okay.
thing is, you probably won't look as fat because like you said, like it's not all fat.
Yeah.
Back then, like that was just probably water weight from eating bad, and then
And it was in
actual
my
more body
face and
mass.
yeah, it was bad.
That's
Yeah.
the worst. Yeah, I'm starting to get like I don't like my face shape. When I look, I like sometimes I'll go through my old Instagram photos and I'm just like, oh, my face was had so much more structure back
So
then.
small. My face is so
It's fine. It's
Oh
fine.
man. Oh, I
It's
guess
all
we
gonna
should
be worth it.
probably wrap it up. But for
Yeah.
the people that are watching this, so we really just wanted to let it develop organically. We've got a lot of topic ideas. I think we're going to talk about circumcision in the coming weeks and
Yeah.
maybe interview the director of this movie that came out, this documentary that came out recently. We've got a few interviews lined up with other YouTubers that have pretty recently had babies. Um, and things like that. But we would love to take into account your ideas, what you want to hear about pregnancy and the things to come. And also, I feel compelled to say that, like, I don't know anything about motherhood. I don't. I'm not coming into this like, this is what you need to do and this is how it needs to be done because I have no freaking idea. This is a total learn as you go thing. I'm only 17 weeks pregnant, so I also can't talk about birth and how totally easy my natural childbirth is. I have no idea. No. I say I want to do that now, but I'm gonna be like, you give me that epidural. So so I don't want to come into this from like a position of authority or anything like that. Like a lot of it's going to be this coming along on this journey that I'm on, which is not having being a totally clueless millennial, not having any idea what to do, how to deal with pregnancy, how to deal with a newborn. And like I'm going to look like shit sometimes and I'm going to be tired and I'm not going to be one of these moms that is all the time thrilled with motherhood. There are going to be ups and downs and I want to talk about all of that. I don't want to have this Pollyanna perception of motherhood either because, I want people to know that it is going to be hard and
Absolutely.
for them to feel like they're in good company if you've got like a screaming 2-year-old and you're pregnant and your husband's out of town and your hair is in a top knot and you've been crying all day, like if that's what's going on in your life right now and you feel defeated and everything like that, like I'm sure I will be there with you in a short
Yeah,
period of time.
absolutely.
So
And there'll be a lot of moms out there that are watching that will 100% relate and they will appreciate that relatability,
yeah.
because I think one of the hardest things that I have heard other women talk about when you're a new mom is the isolation and how
Mhm.
lonely it can be.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the other thing that I think that would be really useful for us as soon to be moms, new moms, is to use the network that we've built over the years that we've been online to talk to moms who've already walked the walk, right? Like I'm going to be leaning on them for support and I'm going to be doing it publicly. Like I have no shame about the fact that this channel is going to be a learning process for me too, right? Like in a selfish kind of way, I'm excited to do those interviews for you guys because I know I'm going to be learning stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then there's also the potential And please like leave a comment down below, or let us know in the live chat how you feel about this. But I think it would be really handy to have a kind of mom group chat, kind of like a forum, you know what I mean? Great to have the forum behind a paywall, simply because we will be weeding out people who want to kind of like go into that space to either troll or make, you know, sort of rude comments to women who are in a vulnerable place. And then also, I mean, there are privacy issues, right? And so like if we can make that space a little bit more secure, so that the kind of people who are in that forum, we know they want to be there.
Right.
And they can lean on each other for support, use it as a resource for their questions if they don't have access to a doula and that kind of stuff. I think that would be personally something that I would be interested in trying to build.
Definitely.
So if there are any women out there who are, you know, watching that would be interested in, you know, I mean, like I can't imagine that it would be worth paying more than like a couple dollars a month to be involved in like
what they don't want to pay $600 a year for exclusive lion content. No shade.
If that's something that people are interested in, I think that it would be really, really useful.
Definitely. And I haven't run this by you yet, but on Beauty and the Beta, which is my Sunday night podcast with Matt Christensen, we eventually were able to develop this giant network of meetups. And it was just people that were signing up on these spreadsheets that we had put together, and we're meeting up with one another. If that's something like I know when I talk to new moms, they're always like, nobody ever tells you, one, how boring this is going to be and how isolated it's going to be. And so if we could, especially because, you know, we both are new to the areas we live in, if we could create these smaller communities where like a prenatal class, like something like that, where these groups of moms can meet up and develop friendships, like that would be ideal for me. Like I really just want this to be a place where people that are kind of in our situation can come and be like, wow, I'm not alone. I also don't know what I'm doing and I feel way over my head, but like I have this resource, and then maybe I have some friends near me that can help me out and help me through this.
Totally. I think if we're going to do that, it makes more sense to do it like not in Canada, because I don't know what the turnout would be, to be honest, if I were to organize something like that in my community. But I think like we're both on the West Coast, and I think there are enough women, you know, we could pick a central enough location where, you know, people could likely maybe make a short day trip to for an event like that, and I think it would be totally worth it. So yeah, I mean, like,
but
anyone who
people
has
meeting up in their own areas, like we have meetups in like Serbia for Beauty and the Beta.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so cool.
It's really crazy. I mean, it's only like 3 people, but the fact that those 3 people that have this podcast in common can meet up, it's like if we could eventually get to a place where we were doing that, even for women in small towns that are just meeting up with each other, that would make me so super happy. Or just talking to each other. I mean, you and I, we talked about this when we did Girl Talk, but we're dear friends and we've only met one time in real life.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, just Skyping with somebody that is on the same page, like it's so helpful, and it'll really help you get through this if you're having a rough time.
Absolutely. Totally.
So yeah, I think we're planning on doing this weekly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. There'll be either probably an interview with someone, or it'll be myself and you in a live stream format where we can interact with the people who are watching more attentively. So it'll probably be us finding our rhythm with that and what works best for us. But hopefully the people out there watching will be generous with their advice for like where they think they would like to see our content go, and we can try and incorporate that as much as possible.
Yeah, and I did want to talk a little bit about monetization. We do have a bit of a community. Like on my personal channel, I knew that I wanted to get out of my job. And so from the get-go, I was like, I'm going to monetize this. I'm going to do it on a per video basis so that it's commensurate with the content I'm making. And I think that because it would be really helpful if I was bringing in some extra income for my family, and because I'm leaving my other channel right now, I suggested to Robyn that we do the same thing here, that we just monetize right from the get-go. I don't expect anybody that's watching to donate anything I'm not saying that we're owed that or anything like that, but we will have a Patreon and a Subscribe Star
Yeah.
set up, and then we will be accepting super chats if you feel like donating them. But obviously it's just like a down the road thing. But I just wanted to say that like from the get go we're gonna do that, because that seems to be. I talked to a lot of people that didn't do that on their channel from the beginning, and their regrets later are like, I lost my job and this is all I can do now, and I just wish I would have monetized from the beginning. And so when I decided to start a new channel, I was like, I'm just going to do what I did on Blonde.
Yeah. And, you know, the thing is, we plan on working for this community. This is
sure.
labor. We have families that are growing. And like, I'm really over entertaining this thing that happens on our side of the internet where we shame each other for making a living doing what I think is very valuable work online.
Yeah.
So we're not, like you said, we're not like demanding anything from anyone, but we will be offering some really cool resources via Patreon for people, and the opportunity to support our work to keep it going. Right.
That's definitely true. Yeah. And then I've always thought that I would never do product placements or anything like that. But now that we're doing something that's more specialized, that's something else that I'm open to. So,
Absolutely.
you know, if we're talking about some diaper tote in like a few months, like I'm not saying that I'm above that. Like I'll do it. But I also wanted to help other businesses. So before we go, I wanted to mention my friend has a store in northern Idaho called Relic, and it's homemade goods, like wonderful homemade goods, homemade leather items. It's baby clothes. She's a great online shop. So check it out. We're going to link that in the description below as well. But other than that, yeah, we're just going to try to do this weekly, and we're going to be consistent about it. And we're just going to be talking about our pregnancies, and it will grow. I mean, we've talked about maybe in the future, doing some cooking videos, because that's something we both like to do a lot, and kind of branching out. My friend, the one that owns Relic, she's a nutritionist. And so I thought maybe I could get her on and she could do some content for us as well. Maybe do some episodes, like Blonde, the butter maker. Is that right?
The blonde butter maker.
There it is.
Exactly. Yes.
Like she did for Red Ice.
Exactly.
Because I love that content. And so if we can get some stuff like that going on this channel.
Brave the World. She would definitely be interested in doing stuff like that as well.
I'd love to have her on. I loved her the curing the pork video. Yeah.
Just like eating raw pork pregnant.
I'm like, this chick is she's hardcore. I like it. I'm into it. So yeah, I mean, we're definitely open to your ideas. Please leave them in the comment section. And thank you so much for joining us on this maiden voyage of our channel. And I hope that we're here for several years to come.
Absolutely. Thanks a million, guys.
Thanks. Bye, guys.